to review something later, I'll try and dissect it, or we'll try and dissect it and have special clips of certain things. But Transactiondesk has kind of become my go-to. You know, I still love zip forms. I think that that's a little bit easier to use, but Transactiondesk is kind of what we've got integrated into everything. And once you get into it and understand how it works, it's actually pretty effective and it works pretty well. Wow, this is like my own little concert here.
Do we need to get our lighters out?
Yeah, please, please. Gosh, I had this saved on my. Yeah. What's the address? I have mine in a bookmark. I don't even know what it is. OKC. Oh, there we go. Nice. See, there we go. So if you log into Transactiondesk through the MLS all the time and access it that way, you're missing out on a pretty good opportunity to go directly to Transactiondesk. Transactiondesk and the MLS are two completely separate things. They're just connected through the MLS. The MLS has an integration with Transactiondesk to where you can go to Transactiondesk by clicking on a link. The guts of it is that the MLS is generating certain codes that it sends to the Transactiondesk when it does that. But the reality is that there's a website that you can go to that is that will take you directly into your signings or directly into your transactions just by going to that website. So bookmark it. I haven't gone through the MLS to get to Transactiondesk in 2 years. So it just eliminates a step. And that's kind of what all of this is about, is trying to eliminate some redundancy in a lot of what we do. So I will go ahead and I'll access Transactiondesk through the MLS for this first time, and then I'll show you where to go to access it next time. And I'm not going to click on this link though. I'm actually going to go into here, because most of the time when we're looking at things, we're on the MLS. So let's find a property that we want to take a look at, like this beautiful one here, 17101 Cadiz Court in Talavera, 310,000. The owners are motivated.
Are you marketing or?
Oh, no.
Can you show us a picture?
No. This is not about marketing this beautiful home. Four bedroom, 3 bedroom. I mean, it's a 3-bed house, cul-de-sac lot, real private. I mean, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous house. So. Let's say that you were going to make an offer on this house, which I encourage. Click on this little TD Transactiondesk over in the left-hand side. That will take all of the information from the MLS and it will port it over to Transactiondesk. So if we click on that, it'll take us into this page here, where, so it knows that I already have a transaction started. So let's find a different.
I'll go to 1912 Broome.
1912 Broome. Well, let's see what other options. Victoria.
Yeah.
Oh, we heard about this one. I'm sorry. I gotta keep it in the family here. So we'll say we want to make an offer on this. We'll do the Transactiondesk, and it should take us into the. Here we go. Okay, so. It takes us right into Transactiondesk by clicking on that, and it'll immediately bring up this screen here if we don't already have a transaction that's associated with that MLS number. And the none here, I'll tell you, it's just the MLS being silly. They require us to put this in there, and from a databasing standpoint, I think it's silly, but just delete that. You can name it whatever you want. It's not going to affect anything. It's not going to mess up the link. It's the MLS number that actually right here that defines how the information is linked with the MLS. It'll pull it once, so if the information changes, it won't change on Transactiondesk. You've got to change it manually. So if the list price changes or something like that, then you have to manually change it. It just pulls it over once right now. So template, you do have these templates there now. So you can use these templates, and I would encourage you to, because it has all the documents in it that you need. There's a conventional loan template, FHA loan template, VA loan template and residential listing. Of course, we're not going to be doing the residential listing on this one, but I'll show you that in a second. So let's say that we have a conventional loan. It'll pull the information in immediately and add me as the selling agent. And we will click create. We can use the add wizard, or we can use the wizard, which I typically will do. Click create. A lot of these blanks do absolutely nothing for our contract forms. This stuff right here that you're looking at is a Transactiondesk form. They've tried to go through and create all of the different fields that could possibly be there on any of the different contract documents that they have and they use in any of their systems. So a lot of these have absolutely no bearing on what we do with our contract forms. So in this case, you can see that it populated a lot of stuff over. One of the things that I constantly am having to update, and one of the things that they don't update, is that legal description blank. Well, it's written in there, but they just don't have it ported over. If you type in the legal description here, it'll port that over into the contract paperwork when you finish it up. So this is actually what it's looking for, not the lot and block and subdivision here. That doesn't do anything, really. So I would say go through, fill out as much of this as you can. Go through the next one, offer date, expiration date. Of course, the 12 a.m. doesn't matter, but if you do put a expiration date in here, it will show up as the 5 p.m. On the contract. Expiration date here, I think that's for a listing agreement, so that's not necessarily pertinent for what we're doing. Closing date, if you just fill in all the appropriate information that would be pertinent to our contracts. So if it's not on our contracts, then it's not going to be, you can put in whatever you want, but it's just not going to show up. We can kind of click through. This is where I would add the transaction contacts here, and we'll create a new transaction contact, and we can label it buyer. We'll say first name is Rob, last name is Scherer, email is we'll hit save, and that adds me. Now I've got 3 of me here, but it's labeled me. So I can go ahead and hit next. And these are all the forms that are actually already in there, pre-populated from the MLS.
Rob, everybody has that on theirs, right?
Everybody has this,
Okay.
yeah. So right now, we've set it up. I worked with Steve last week to get things accessible so that you guys can have all of these forms immediately. So some of them you are going to use, some of them you're not going to use. You just delete them. So in this case, we will need the homeowners association supplement, but the condominium townhome supplement, we can go ahead and delete that. We don't need that.
Just
So
delete
we
this
can-
transaction.
Yeah, we can just delete them for this transaction, or you can leave them in. It's not
I was
gonna
gonna ask
hurt
you,
anything.
that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you. I mean,
Yeah.
I sometimes just leave them in there. Do you guys always delete them out and clean it up, or?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, you can leave them in if you want. You can delete them out if you want. It's just your personal preference there. The reason I'll delete them is that sometimes when I want to save the transactions as PDF, then it'll include all of the addendums in there up to a certain point. I have these in the order that I like them in, simply because the first couple pages will be the documents that I want to take out. And so if it's at the very beginning, those documents, then I can quickly print to PDF the part of the contract that I want, like page 4 to 11 or 4 to 13, whatever that might be, and then save the portion of the PDF without the broker disclosure, without the other disclosures and those kind of things. So I can quickly save those and then send the PDF on, or go into Transactiondesk and delete them. Yes.
What if we already had a template set up and we're both here now?
Yep.
So-
So there's office templates, and then there's your individual templates. They're completely separate. The office templates just supplement what you've already got if you've created something. But like in the case of the listing template, there's like 5 or 6, don't ask me why, 5 or 6 different disclosures there, and I always pick every single wrong one before I find the right one. And so we've got the right one in there that you don't have to hunt and peck for, which has saved me countless hours and actually has reduced my coffee intake by just a little bit, which is surprising.
You might go this at the end, but when you just said at the end of a transaction, you like to save some of it to a PDF.
No,
Okay.
and what I meant by that is when I'm sending a document on to other parties.
Gotcha.
Because when you sign something, let's say we send this off to the buyers, it's gonna have the disclosures, it's gonna have all those things all packaged together. And for a very, very, very good reason, they make it difficult to separate them.
Yeah.
They don't want you modifying those documents. The problem is that we need to in order to send them on, otherwise we either just send them all together and look like we, shoot from the hip, or we, wait until we get to a place where we can, or we use a clunky device or a clunky interface to do that. There is a way to do that in Transactiondesk. You can do from the phone, from an iPad, from the computer, even if you don't have anything else. But I'll show you a quick trick that I've been using Google Chrome of all things. So we'll get to that in just a
Okay,
minute. So we'll hit done here, and then all the forms are going to be pre-populated with the information that we want in them. So we'll click on the uniform contract of sale here, and you can see that everything is pre-populated: buyer's name, address. These we need to go ahead and just click through on. But look at this. The legal description is there, and so, I mean, you still have to type it in. You have to type it in here, you have to type it in there, but if you're doing multiple contracts, or if you're doing, a couple different documents, there's a couple different places where this actually populates in, and it's handy just to have it, type it in once and then not have to deal with it. And I scratched my head on this for quite a while, trying to figure out why in the world it wasn't working. It's just, they haven't linked it yet, but all you need to do is just type it in that one field, and then you've got it. So you can go through and fill this out. I'll usually go and I'll just hit tab through every single blank. And go through just every single blank. It sounds so silly, but this has saved me
You don't miss
so
it.
many times. Just, missing one little thing, trying to move too quick. Everybody makes mistakes, and it's all about catching them before they become bigger ones, not making them in the first place. But auto-populating a lot of the information, filling it out ahead of time is a way to prevent a lot of that from happening. So now, I mean, we can quickly go into signing. It'll create a signing directly from this document, or we can click no and go back to the home page. We can go to other documents there, click back here. If we wanted to go in and let's say we were already in AuthentiSign, we wanted to add a signing. You can name it here and then go in and add any of the documents from this transaction. If you wanted to upload an estimate of costs, this is a good place to do it. The way the Transactiondesk has everything organized is that things pertinent to this particular file are on the right. If you go back to the main menu, everything is here on the left. So I can go over the forms just by clicking this button over here. And that'll save you a couple clicks going through, having to search for something, and then go back. But if I wanted to do multiple forms, you just go to the Forms tab here. I can select all of them, which I rarely do, or I can select them in the order that I want, and then go in and click on the basket, and oh, well, that's nice. I don't know what that is, but it seemed to work otherwise. So, and then just click Sign and AuthentiSign.
And so they're just getting one email then?
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, they'll just get one email. It just adds all those forms to this transaction. I will modify the way that this looks, simply because this is always how the this is an email subject line in my book. It's a way that we refer to it, but it's an email subject line to them, and this is what it's going to say. It's going to say invitation to AuthentiSign, Victoria Drive Homeowners Association, and for whatever reason, just pulls one of the titles in, so I would just change this to offer documents. And that's what they're gonna get in their email, and that's what they're gonna click on, and it just, in my book, makes it a little bit easier for them to see. Yes?
So, you showing all this, it seems to me that I was the whole time taking an extra step with zip form. Going into zip form, filling it out, saving it, and coming back to Transactiondesk to sign.
Well, I mean, if you use, the best thing to use is what you know and what you will use. If you want to use zip forms,
No,
there's
this
no
is much
reason not to.
easier.
But
Yes.
zip forms does, I think, integrate with DocuSign.
Yeah.
And so it's just a separate system,
Yeah.
one that have not made myself familiar with, just because in my book, this is too easy now.
Yeah, it's super easy. But also on zip form, I noticed recently, I don't know if it's just mine, when I click on forms, I can click all and then the OREC forms. For example, the square footage acknowledgement, when I click on it, it says, you don't have access to this form. So I don't know if it's, and there are several, not just that.
Yeah.
I
Can't
don't
say
know
that
if anybody else has.
I've run into
Okay, we're
that,
talking
but-
transaction
No, I know, I was just
Yeah.
comparing.
Yeah.
But, and some of those forms, if there's forms that you guys commonly use that aren't there, that you go searching for, let us know, and we can get those added. Yeah, Mike?
On the tab, when you're talking about tabbing through, if there are defaults that you normally put in, like, for an example, like, wording on a termite inspection, if there's termites, or the title evidence, or the number of days for inspection, can you set that up to where it's a default that automatically has it that way?
I'll
but
I'll
for-
divert just for a second, because that is a good thing.
So if you're used to doing it a certain way, then it's gonna pull up the way.
To access that, you go into the setup menu.
Yeah.
And then clauses.
Okay.
Just play around in the setup menu for a second, guys. I don't know why they have all this stuff in the little gear icon. Nobody would ever click on it otherwise, but there's a lot of fun things in here. But you can click on clauses. You can add personal clauses. I've got one in here, no financing contingency.
Right.
You can do whatever you'd like, and then in the signing, let's see, I always have to go through and think about it. I think that it's actually in Transactiondesk that you do that, so let me go back to Transactiondesk. We'll go to that special provisions portion. And I think, here we go,
Yeah.
clauses, and if I go to personal clauses, I can click on here, and then it'll automatically be added.
What about like the boxes, for an example? I'm so lazy, if I can get it set up, even some of the boxes, that if I know they're already pre-checked, then I can come back and modify it only if it's gonna be different.
That's actually,
Home warranty, something like that?
Yeah,
Or the
for an
inspection
example.
period.
Yeah.
Like if you always say at time of acceptance, 15 days, 7 days, can you preset that? Is that what you mean?
so the documents,
that's what I mean.
yeah, the documents that, and we may be able to, as an office, come up with the date or amount of days that we will typically do. But because the transaction templates is on office level, then
I
it
got
would
you.
be for
I got you.
everybody. And
Alright.
so if you have personal defaults, then it's still gonna be something that you need to go through and modify. But we can, like on a conventional loan packet or template, there's no reason that shouldn't be checked to begin with. Those kind of things we can tweak along the way for sure. That way it just takes one less click, one less thing for you to think about along the way. And then you can go back to the signings just by going over here, and you'll see all of the different signings. The simul sign versus sign in line, I always do the simul sign. This isn't necessarily going to be over Authentisign. This is more of a transaction desk thing, but I'll just show you this really quick. But to add participants, you go through, you click here, and as long as they're set up correctly as the buyer, the selling agent, seller, they will auto-populate in the correct place from Transactiondesk. So all of these forms already have pre-populated the fields where those signings need to be. But in order for them to have that and do that, they need to, Transactiondesk or Authentisign needs to know who that party is. And let's say we messed up, let's say we previously worked with this person, and they're actually a seller. All we need to do is change the role in here, and it will change where they're at on the sign document. So we can change this person to a seller, save the participant, and then now their signatures will be in where the seller blank is. Yes.
You just shouldn't have to go over there. I think I make it 4 steps harder for me on purpose for some reason. But you didn't have to go to the contact on the left. You just were already in it and just go to the switch who they were. And show me again.
Yeah.
Little info
No, I
button.
think,
Info
I think
button,
you
okay.
just click on the contact
Oh.
itself. I don't think you need to click on the.
To go to over,
info
because they
button.
would have gone
Yeah.
over to contact. Okay, wow.
Don't you have
Okay.
to click update contact
If you
info?
change it.
You know,
If
it
you-
always
if
does
you
it,
want-
always.
Yeah, if
Save
you want to
participant.
save it to
Yeah.
your contacts that way, then yes, you'll want to update contact info. Let's say that, this person, Schaefer, whoops. Well, that's interesting. There we go, okay, Schaefer, all right, and now, let's say that that person, I wanted to make sure that I just made a typo when I initially saved it. Now, I don't wanna do that again, this will save you from having to go back to the contacts and fix it later, let's just fix it along the way.
Rob,
Yep,
I just figured out, actually, I'm embarrassed to say, that where you have yourself as a contact or the company as a contact, those extra tabs that are there are also where you can have your license number put in and the company number put in, so you
Yeah.
don't have to type these every single time.
Yes.
Member leader.
yep,
Where do you do that?
Where is,
yeah, so.
where is that?
Where is it?
Where you did that? If Rob pull you up as the agent.
Instead of seller.
Sorry, there we go.
So in your, where you say.
So-
Selling agent.
Selling agent.
Yeah.
Right.
Oops.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah.
It may have to be when you set up the contacts.
The first time originally.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
scroll to the bottom. Is it on the bottom of the screen?
It's not letting me scroll for some
Oh,
reason.
it's not. Huh, interesting. I think it's
I found it when I was first setting it up.
There may be more options when you go into these ones.
I think when you're setting it
There is a way that you can add more fields. I think these are just pertinent to the signing, but there may be additional fields that you can modify.
It's actually in Transactiondesk, not Authentisign.
Oh,
Because,
okay.
because all of those documents are actually populated from Transactiondesk,
Under your
not
profile.
Authentisign. So if the information is not in there, you're gonna have to add it once you get to Authentisign. Yes, babe?
Does it matter if you, like you just filled this out, but you can also do a cover sheet and fill it out?
When you say cover
You're not
sheet.
there yet.
There is a cover sheet that you can have on this?
Yeah, so it's built, you're talking about the confirmation and disclosures, or like a
Well,
fax
my
back cover
point
sheet?
of all this is, there's 2 forms, I can never get it to auto-populate, I have to go do it every single time. And I've never figured out why, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I'll show
Okay.
you, those are actually in the templates.
Okay, thank you.
So, there's the buyer brokerage agreement, and you're talking about this.
Yes,
Yeah, so this will auto-populate with the contract. You do have to check the boxes though in Transactiondesk.
it's the
But
signature that, I mean, the name.
the name
The name
will
should
auto-populate. Now, okay, now keep in mind, the reason that it's not in the correct location is because they changed the role in Authentisign. So Authentisign thinks that this is a seller when I typed it into the Transactiondesk as the buyer. So now, I will go back and we'll go back to Transactiondesk.
While you're going back, is there any other clauses you have created besides, you had a, what was
Not in
yours?
here, but I need to. I need to.
What are some other clauses you,
Oh, the termite, I mean, there's a termite treatment, there's a couple, honestly, you know, right here on the spot, I can't really necessarily think of them.
The real estate, have a whole list of clauses.
Yeah.
You can go in there and check those out.
Steve at one point provided us with some clauses to use, I tried to find
Where
them.
are they?
You can add those
I don't
clauses
know,
too.
I can find them.
Yeah.
They're in the closet.
Yeah.
they're in the closet?
CLAUSTT, clauses.
If you could add those as template clauses, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
When you went into that signing thing on the right side of the screen,
Uh-huh.
and you clicked it in the order that you wanted, that's how it'll show up?
yes.
Okay, cause I don't know, they're always messed up when I go in there, I
Well,
have to
so we've
reorganize.
purposefully ordered them that way in the template.
Oh,
And that way you don't have to move them around, they're already in that order. So it's gonna
Perfect.
go in the buyer brokerage agreement, the, contract cover sheet contract, then you're gonna have the homeowners or the financing addendum, the HOA addendum, the earnest money form, an addendum, the TRR, and every single transaction, they're gonna be in that order. So it's really the order that you're gonna be looking at using them in.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yes.
Sorry,
Fine.
while you're in transaction desk, so say, you put the wrong number as you're starting your first, address, and say you, said 205 instead of, 202, but you didn't catch it, and so instead of just typing it in to fix it, every time, like I went in one time and tried to change it on the original, but the whole file, like it still was trying to pull the original, so where do you change it at?
Change
That-
information.
The number, like if you missed the house number or something like that, where's the, I guess it kept trying to go back to what I originally set up, so I was thinking what did I do?
Right, so, in Transactiondesk, if you want to
Oh, I
go
gotta
here
change
and on the
that.
side here, if you click on
Change it.
details, it'll take you back into this and let you go back through and
That's where I needed to
change,
go and change in there.
change all of those. Yeah, don't, it's easy to forget about this right-hand menu. This
Yeah.
right-hand menu here is pertinent to the transaction you're working on. This is easy to overlook. So this is signings for this transaction, forms for this transaction, contacts for this transaction, details, dashboard.
Click contacts from there, then you can
Yes.
show everybody where their license info.
On that
Yeah.
though,
Yeah.
if you go up to that top line, say it was supposed to be 17323
Uh-huh.
Victoria,
Yeah.
if you change it up there, and then when you go off of it, it'll ask if you wanna update that property, and then it'll change it on everything.
Okay.
So this is just the title of the transaction, this won't change anything that is pertinent to the fields in the file itself. So this is just how it's titled.
Try it, see if it works.
See, and I think that's what I did, Lynn, and then I realized it didn't change it, so maybe it didn't ask me.
So, I can hit save, but that's only gonna change it here on this dashboard here, not necessarily in the contact details here, so I would need to change it here and then hit save. Okay. Other things, I don't wanna take up too much more time, but, getting documents into Transactiondesk or getting documents into an Authentisign, there are a couple different ways that you can do this from mobile. You can either have and this is something that is overlooked, there's an email upload button. The hand is right here on it right now. If you wanted to create a contact for each transaction, you could. If you wanted to create a transaction that is mobile uploads for generic stuff that maybe isn't associated with a transaction, you could do that. And then have this email address right here. And if you click on it, this is an email address that is specifically for this transaction. If I have a PDF attachment, I can email that PDF attachment to this address and it'll show up in my documents for that file.
Example, good
Yeah, I
faith
need an
estimate.
example, 'cause
Good faith estimates.
Good faith estimates, let's say you have a contract or a counteroffer from a seller, you're out showing and you need to get it back to them by 5 o'clock and it's 4 o'clock and you are in Guthrie and you need to get back to your computer here at the office and there's no way. So what you can do is you can take this email address and then forward the email that you received with the counteroffer on it to this email address, and we'll add it to Authentisign. And Transactiondesk, and then you can create a signature through Authentisign on your mobile phone. You can do that. You can get into any of this on your phone, on your iPad, and create a transaction signing from there using that document that you've emailed into the system.
So on the dashboard right there, I'm not seeing how you would get to this email upload option.
So that is, so in the top, there's a document upload button.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it does look a little different in mobile. The very top field, and I'll try and have maybe a screenshot or something in an email later, but the top field is document upload. If you click on that, then it'll open up a window with these options in it. And you can click on that, get that email address, and then if you wanted to save it as a contact card, this on mobile, you can download the contact card, and then it'll automatically import into your phone as a contact card for that transaction. And then you can just have that in your phone. So that's,
Can you do an
That's-
example of one of those right there, like just like you said, good day estimate, or was one of it, like, you were emailing it out to there?
let's see, I need to find a PDF. Jim, do you mind if I borrow your?
You go right ahead.
Well, that's, I don't know if it's gonna let me email from yours, because it may only allow me to email in from my email address.
That's right though, because if you're in like the CCA app and you want to email a cost estimate, you
Yes.
could actually email it to that transaction instead of saving it as a PDF,
Yeah.
uploading it to your email, then sending it out.
Mark
That
it
just
up,
saved
yeah.
me like 2
Yeah.
or 3 steps.
Oh, yeah.
Can you do a step-by-step, some kind of instruction on that? In writing? Could you also?
Well, I think that's why I asked you to do
Peggy and I
it.
are trying to follow you here, but
Yeah, okay, no, I'm just getting into my email here, and that's it. So, this is just a new email, I put in the to field that email address. And the subject can be whatever you would want instead. And then, I have no idea what files are on this computer that we can use.
Who knows?
He's like, I'm blind.
Don't judge me, this
Yeah.
is not my computer, I have no.
Careful!
Yeah, so we will, this looks interesting, so, we'll see. So we'll just hit open here, and then we will send that in to Transactiondesk, and we're gonna sign something. Don't even ask me, Victoria just got really interesting.
Yeah, your
So-
address is totally wrong.
You may want to clean that up after this meeting.
Well, no, I'll just delete this transaction, just by going up here, and that way my transaction desk is clean.
There you go.
And we can go up to the transaction, these are actually in the order that you've worked on them in. So that kind of covers, one of the ways that you can get documents into Transactiondesk, via mobile. Another way that
What,
I
can we
have-
see where that is?
Yeah, where do you see it?
Yeah, we wanna see where it went.
Go back
Oh,
and show them.
okay,
where it
Yeah,
was.
we want,
Yeah, okay, so in documents, it should appear over here as soon as they parse it out and
Gotcha.
get it put in there. PDFs show up pretty quickly, that just happens to be a picture, so I don't know how quickly that will show up. But it will show up over here, and then you can go through and create a signing and then add documents that are pertinent to the file over here. It does take a couple minutes,
Okay.
hopefully. I've actually never done that with a picture before, so maybe it won't work with a picture, but I know that it works with PDFs. No,
There
there we
it
go.
is.
there
Yeah.
it is.
Well, let's see what it
So,
is.
yeah.
This is what you do.
Buyer's agent.
Blah, blah, That was one of our kids taking notes during somebody's
I will sign that. I have no problem signing that. All right, no problem.
If I was the only one to use this computer, I would say, full responsibility. I'm
then
Yeah.
if I wanted to, I could add email files. So, okay, all right, now this is another important distinction. When you email something in, if there's any content in the email, it will pull that too. So if you wanted to just forward an email across, let's say you had just text and an email that you wanted somebody to sign, and it's just written out in an email, you could select that, but this is the actual document that I attached. So full size R is the document that I attached. The email file upload is the email itself, and I'll show you that in just a second. So here you can see that this is the subject, and my it's a little difficult to see there.
So Rob,
Yes.
theoretically, if you wanted to use this as a repository for all the emails related to a transaction, you could forward them all in.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And so here you can see that,
Sign off on it, Ron.
I will sign off on that. So, impromptu is always the best. Right, so, the other, okay, so the last part of this, I think that, and I may have to hand it back over to Jim, is to get into Transactiondesk, you do not have to always access it through the MLS. That's just a quick way that you know that you can either create the link between a property and Transactiondesk, or if you're already in the MLS, there's no reason not to use that. But if you wanted to open up a new tab and go into Transactiondesk, take a look at this link right here. And you don't necessarily need to remember it or write it down here, because next time that you log into Transactiondesk and go to the home screen of the dashboard, it'll be there. Just copy this, save it as a bookmark, and then when you want to get back into Transactiondesk, then you just paste it into a new window. Now, the one caveat to this is that if you've never set up a login or username separate with Transactiondesk than the MLS, then you're going to have to go through a couple different steps and either change your profile information down here and change your password when you're in Transactiondesk, or go through the forgot password feature in Transactiondesk and reset it once you're on. I'll show you.
Now, if we reset it on
Once you're on.
Transactiondesk, would you use that same password for our MLS login too? All the way around?
No,
keep it around.
Transactiondesk is completely separate.
Okay.
Transactiondesk is completely separate. So you'll see this come up. And this is a login for Transactiondesk. This is completely separate from the MLS, but if you bookmark this and you create your username and password, and I do think that it defaults to your MLS email address and password. I think it used to do that. I don't know if it does anymore, but if you go in and change that, it'll only change it on Transactiondesk, and then you can just remember it. I changed mine specifically to where everything lines up with the MLS password, so it's still the same, so I don't have to remember anything else. Yes?
So there is an app that is called Transactiondesk.
Uh-huh.
Is that what you use?
So I have used the Transactiondesk app, and I think that that's only on Apple devices. They don't have a Transactiondesk app for Android yet, but if you access Transactiondesk through Chrome, you can do that as well. And I do think that there is a way that they're working on to be able to share a PDF to Transactiondesk through your iPhone too. It's a little clunky right now. I haven't been able to get it to work quite right for me, but I think that they are working on that. And I haven't tried it in a little bit, so it's gone through a couple different revisions, so that might be another way that we can experiment as well. But signing into Transactiondesk, this will just save you a couple steps here.
But can you make a shortcut for that?
Yeah, if you want.
You wanna show us how to do that?
Sure, yeah, so making a shortcut is just as easy as, like, let's say that we wanted to put this on our desktop. If you use Chrome, all you need to do is come up to the browser, see this little lock icon, grab that, and then just drag it over here. Yeah, well, and it just depends on what browser that you're using.
Pardon?
It depends on what web browser that you're using. Chrome that works in. But if you wanted to create a bookmark separately in Chrome is what I use. You can just click on the star icon and it will bookmark it that way. And one of the nice things about saving a bookmark is that then you can start typing something in, TR, and it'll automatically start populating your bookmarks, and you can just select it there. You don't even have to remember how to spell transaction, just TR.
That's good.
Yeah, I know, right?
So
Right?
if you go in directly to Transactiondesk, it won't pull, you can't pull anything from the MLS site if you're doing a contract.
You can, as long as you have the MLS number. And so you can populate all of those forms. You can populate them from Realist, or you can populate them from the MLS. I've found that to be problematic when it does that, trying to find Realist information. I mean, for whatever reason, it's pretty clunky at the moment, trying to find people's information. You have to sift through a whole bunch of menus. Half the time it feels like it doesn't find it, but it's there. If you hit search a couple times, don't ask me why that does it, but it's there. You just need to look for it. If you import from Realist, you do have to put in the owner's names, you have to put in the property address, you have to put in the county particularly, and then it should pull from there, or just input the MLS number and pull it over. So if you're in Transactiondesk first, you can do that. It's just easier because a lot of times you're already in the MLS. I'll have saved the disclosures in a folder and then click on the Transactiondesk icon and it'll port everything over, and then I can pull the disclosures in just pretty easily by uploading them, either just through the interface here or emailing them in. Hey.
So is the functionality between Transactiondesk through the MLS access matrix or whatever, and going directly to the site, is the functionality of Transactiondesk exactly the same, and the only difference is how you access it through login?
Yes, yeah, our functionality is exactly the same. It's the only difference is how you access it, and that's it. There's no difference. It's the same login, same functions on the back end.
Okay.
Going through the MLS, if you go through on a particular list, it'll automatically anticipate that you're wanting to make a contract or start something with that listing, so it'll ask you to port that information over.
Gotcha.
If you didn't want to do something with that listing and you just wanted it as a link to get into Transactiondesk, then just click cancel on starting a new transaction, and then you'll be in Transactiondesk just by clicking on that Transactiondesk icon in the listing. So
Cool.
just about save the time. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I have a question. Every form that I fill out after I complete it, I go up to the dashboard and click on save. Is that a required step, or does it save it otherwise?
unfortunately, you do. So, okay, and I'll go in and I'll show you guys what she's talking about. Yes, that is one of the key elements about this,
Okay.
is that you do have to make sure that you hit save after every revision that you do. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily save it. So if I want to change this to Lane here, I would have to go up to File and hit Save here before it would actually save in the file. If you backed out of this, there's nothing that automatically saves it on the fly. So, so if you are doing this, just remember that you do have to hit save. Otherwise, you could get into a loop of, like, if you went to sign it, if you change something and then immediately went to sign, there's a chance that your information that you just changed could end up not have been saved. So.
Let's appreciate Rob.